Okay, so hi, Stuart, or may I say Stuart French, knowledge manager in his soul and in his role. I think from since I know you for several decades, you are a knowledge manager, and now you are the knowledge manager of Energy Safe Victoria. So, Stuart, please share with us who's Stuart.
That's a good question. Thank you very much for having me. I'm a knowledge manager here down in Melbourne, Australia. And yeah, I've been doing knowledge management since 2002. So I started in IT and I actually did an apprenticeship in oil and gas. So I'm a computer technician by trade. Even though I'm a radio technician because computer technicians didn't exist back then. But I had brackets computers after my title, and I never actually fixed a radio in anger. So I've worked on computers my whole life until about 2006. So I'd sort of worked my way through building up to bigger and bigger projects, and ended up managing the IT for a multinational company, and that was a real amazing experience, helping a small Melbourne company grow to almost every continent on the globe. Fantastic experience, learnt so much, did everything from IT systems to training to lessons learned to understanding our relationship with the various legal entities in each of the countries, and even merger and acquisitions. So I learned a lot. I got to touch a lot of things. And what I kept noticing was that I would deliver projects, they'd be on time, they'd be on budget, and then they'd fall over. And some of that was because I just wasn't very good at change management. So I got better at that, and I realized there was still issues. And after a while, I realized the computers aren't the problem. The people are. Having an understanding of what to do is far more important than the computer knowing how to do it. And so I was looking around for solutions to that problem when two of the key people in the organization who were microbiologists both came to me within a couple of weeks of each other and said, I'm coming up to retirement. I'm looking to step down. Can you help me capture my knowledge so that my wisdom can keep going on and guiding the company long after I'm gone and laying on a beach? And so I was looking for solutions to that problem when my boss said to me, listen, we've got this big project that's just coming to an end, but we're very aware that right now you probably know more about the business internationally than anybody except the CEO. So have a think about if there's any major problems you see, and if you want to solve those, we'll create a position for you. And so at that moment, I thought, I want to solve the knowledge problem. How do we have a lot of, especially in the US, we had a lot of people coming, working for 6 months and leaving. So we had staff turnover. We had people who were used to sales but didn't understand the complexities of medical waste. We had medical waste people that didn't understand the complexities of safety products and medical safety. And so, everyone only had part of the picture, and I needed to be able to transfer that knowledge. And 3 months after I discovered knowledge management, I was doing a master's degree in it, and the rest is history, as they say.
Wow. So nowadays you're working in Energy Safe Victoria. What does this company do? What does this organization do? It's an organization.
Yeah. So in my time, I've worked for private and government and small business and giant big, businesses and departments. And a couple of those have been regulators, government regulators. So this one is a really weird mix, and I'm loving it. So it's a regulator, it's a government regulator, but it's tiny, 280 people. So it's like a small business. It's a really weird mix of small business and government. And because of that, most of the people know each other. They're going through some of the transitions that an SME goes through as it becomes a small corporate, so which most of the people in the organization are totally confused by because they've been government workers their whole life. They've never experienced growth. Government organizations often just get created in situ at the size they are. And so as a result, they're having all the standard SME to small corporate knowledge problems that you would see out in the private world, which is great because we've got so many amazing solutions. And it's not just that, the timing is awesome because, of course, knowledge management has always provided incredibly powerful solutions. The problem with KM has always been ROI. They're expensive. They cost a lot to maintain. Let's take a corporate yellow pages as an example. You can run a project and stand one of them up, but within 3 months, it'll be out of date. And so it's that cost of keeping things up to date. Now, all of a sudden we have AI. All of a sudden we've got styles of automation that we've never had in the knowledge space before. And something like a yellow pages now becomes a walk in the park that's dynamically updated as people send emails and have meetings and write papers and move positions. Incredibly powerful for almost no money now. So I'm so excited. I'm more excited about KM now than I was 23 years ago because I'm now seeing that maturity of 20 years of us all learning how to do knowledge management now underpinned by this automation power of AI, and the future's really bright.
Wonderful, but I want to go back. We spoke about Energy Safe Victoria. It's a government 280 employees organization, which is a regulator, which helps or keeps the people's safety on energy issues in Victoria.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So the big ones would be the big coal power stations, and they're the ones in everyone's mind. But there's also gas power. There's gas transmission lines. There's the giant big power distribution networks, which in Australia can be up to 660,000 volts, spanning from one end of the state to the other. There's the fire risk that comes from those transmission networks. And then, of course, we've got all renewables. So we've got massive solar farms going up all over the place. We have huge wind farms all over the place. I think, I won't quote it, but we've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of windmills now, wind turbines generating electricity, many of them fire risks in their own right, not to mention the danger of working on them at height, etc. We've got apprentices in industry that aren't always kept safe by their employers. And then, of course, we have the danger to the public with things like lithium-ion batteries in scooters catching fire in people's lounge rooms where they're on charge. A lot of people don't realise that those technologies are built as a unit. So the charger that comes with your scooter is matched. And often the chargers are cheap because people buy cheap stuff from overseas and it breaks, as it does. So they buy a new charger, but it's not matched with the unit. And when you put those two together, the battery goes up. And so it's those sorts of practices. We'd run TV ads and all that sort of stuff just to raise awareness and increase the safety of Victorians from energy.
So what I hear from you, what you're sharing, is that there are endless business needs in and out, or when we're speaking about a target audience of the population and within the organization, that KM can help them, whether by distributing knowledge wisely or by sharing knowledge within the organization, retaining it, developing it, creating it. Can you share with us, among all these needs, one or two that are now on your desk on part of your work plan for 2025 and maybe 2026 that you are working on nowadays?
Yeah, sure. So one of the programs we're looking at is to understand the deep knowledge and expertise of our auditors. So we get a lot of people who have been around for 30, 40 years in industry. Maybe they're electricians, maybe they're gas fitters, or they've worked in industry. And a lot of time they'll then come to work for us, for the regulator, for the last 10 years of their career. They'll start auditing the people they used to work for. And these people are amazing, Moria. They have such a depth of experience and knowledge. They know where all the skeletons are hidden. They know all the rugs that things are swept under. And that is knowledge you can't teach, right? That comes from years of working in industry and understanding the type of shortcuts that are taken that often lead to the bad safety outcomes. And so one of the things we're looking at doing is how do we not just capture what the processes and procedures are, because we've got lots of checklists, we've done pretty well with that side of things, but what is it about their knowledge that sets them apart from a fully trained junior? So a person who's done all their training, they're running their own business, but they don't have the extra 30 years experience. What's that gap? And then how can we capture that? And number one, pass that on from employee to employee, because when they leave, oh my gosh, these people leave a big hole, right? And we have a responsibility as a regulator to provide that safety net to the people of Victoria, no matter who comes and goes, right? It's not their fault we lose an employee. We need to have our systems so they can retain that expertise. And number two, of course, with the invention of renewables and all these new technologies coming through, sand-based heat storage that we're seeing out of the Netherlands and all these new technologies, we're even talking about nuclear here in Australia for the first time. And that seems to be on hold for the moment, but you don't know what's around the corner next. And so we're now, rather than having, a bunch of set experts in each of these areas, a person who's been doing the coal power plants for 30 years suddenly might have to look at a wind farm. Well, how do we transfer the knowledge from the wind farm engineers across to this guy? So when they go out and they know what they're looking for, they're not just ticking boxes, they've got some experience with climbing and climbing safety, that sort of stuff. And we make sure we do a good job no matter which one of our people goes out on site. Likewise, some of that expertise can be used in our analytics. And so one of the things in the past, 20 years ago, was the classic random audit. And so they would just roll a dice, and whichever one it pointed to, they would go out and they'd audit that site. But of course, we have data now. So we know that certain types of providers, certain types of facilities or installations are more likely to have safety problems than other ones. If something's been there 20 years or something was built last month, the one that's built last month, there's a good chance there's more problems at because it's brand new. There's still teething issues. Often they won't have signage up to protect the apprentices, that sort of thing. So by using analytics and using the knowledge of our people to guide that analytics, we can actually get a lot more targeted and I won't say waste our time. It's never a waste of time because of the conversations that happen when you're on site and everything. But we can certainly increase the chance of capturing problems. And don't think it's automatically go to court time, right? That is the absolute last resort. The first thing we want to see is voluntary compliance. And so part of what I want to see happen more is that they're not just good at ticking the boxes and seeing what's wrong, but they've got that deep knowledge to be able to advise and educate the people on site while they're there. Hey, listen, next time you do this, try doing this, put this here and here and here, right? We want to educate first and have them be voluntary compliant. Only if they repeatedly get things wrong do we then direct them, you will do this. And only when they ignore that do we then go to court. So yeah, we're certainly based in knowledge, in deep expertise, right from the legal end of being a regulator to the field end, and of course to the technical knowledge and advice we give on our call lines, which we take thousands of calls a year from electrical and gas technicians around the state.
Wow. So let me try just package what I understood here. We're speaking about deep knowledge when we're saying, yes, the SOPs are already documented, the processes are in the air, in the systems everywhere. However, we have many experts with a lot of deep knowledge, mainly about best practices, tips, tricks, good advice, and it can be on the full chain, starting with how to find best a company, an organization a site that should be regulated, how to educate it, how to advise it, how to check it, how to manage the back office information. But we're all the time speaking about the tacit knowledge, whether shallow on the surface almost, not on the surface, but shallow or deep. And that's what you are mainly dealing with, turning this into an organizational asset that can be replicated, reused by many, maybe not in the same level like the experts, but much better, bringing us to a better common level that doesn't take everyone, when we're speaking about the common level, down, but is taking everyone higher and higher.
So spot on, Moria. That's actually the goal. What I'm actually doing, though, is operating at the level above that. I'm trying to create a culture and a set of systems and platforms that we use to do our work, where those sorts of outcomes emerge naturally from the way we work. Because I'm not going to be here forever. I need to create a system that's going to keep renewing itself for the next 2 or 3 decades.
Let's go into that. So when you're saying that you're trying to build the culture, to nurture the culture, because culture you don't really build, you nurture it step by step.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And that you're trying to build a system. When you say system, you mean, I believe, digital system, a platform, together with some governance, together with some processes, together with some specific projects. Can you elaborate?
Yeah, sure. So part of the cultural changes we're trying to make are currently held back by some of the technologies we're using and some of the assumptions that we make. And I think a lot of that is because we're a regulator. So because we're the ones that keep everyone else honest, we feel we need to be really super honest. Everything has to be perfect. Everything's got to be right. And when it comes to giving advice to the government, giving advice to the public, giving advice to experts in the field, they're right. That stuff does have to be perfect. But internally, what we need to build is a lot more imperfect work that is continually improving, continually capturing stuff that's not quite right, but we're looking into it and we're trying to get that right. So we're going to try it this way for a while, and then we're going to report back, evaluate, see what works, what doesn't, and we're going to improve that. So almost like a lessons learned culture. And so right now, lessons learned in the organization is there, but it is very legal, it's very one way, and it's very it's a documentation focused thing. We do a project, we do a major court case or something. At the end, somebody will document their personal lessons from that and then share it with the rest of the organization. And it stops there. That's the end of it. So there's no reviewing that. There's no creation of knowledge assets that help us move forward except for the recording of that hour-long presentation. I'm trying to move it into a much more operationalized day-to-day learning, group learning exercise. So it means moving off records management systems and onto live collaborative co-creative platforms like a wiki, like a knowledge hub, having a review process that isn't looking to perfect, but is looking to transfer and improve on knowledge all the time. So some of the techniques we're using in the IT area are knowledge-centered support, for example, where every time we touch a knowledge article, we improve it. We take 5 minutes and update it with anything that's out of date. And embedding, at the same time we're doing that with the technologies, taking away those barriers, we're looking on the cultural side to get a couple of understandings that we don't want to reinvent the wheel. It's okay to copy something, right? Steal away. If someone else is doing it better, steal off them. Don't reinvent your special way of doing it, right? Nothing is perfect. Just always try and improve everything you touch. And by doing that, we sort of unlock. Now, let me explain just quickly a bit of the background thinking. A couple of years ago, I worked for a company who did sales in a certain industry. And one of the sales teams was doing 60% of the national turnover, which is incredible. Two amazing people. And the CEO was trying to get those two people to travel to the other states around Australia and teach the other sales teams the tricks of the trade of how to sell at this amazing level, right? But he just couldn't do it. It didn't matter what he enticed them with. It didn't matter what he threw at them. They would not go and help the others. So eventually he said to me, "You're the knowledge manager, Stu. I want you to go up to Sydney. I want you to talk to these guys, find out how they're doing it, and then you go and train the other states." Well, you probably know that's not what knowledge managers do, but I said, I'll solve the problem though. So I jumped on a plane, I headed up, and I spent the day with one of their top salesperson. It was great. At about 11 o'clock at night, on about drink number 8, I worked out what the problem was. There was a $120,000 sales bonus fixed. They were taking 60% of that home between them. If they taught anyone else, they got a pay cut. This wasn't a knowledge sharing or a knowledge hoarding problem. This was a bonus problem. And it taught me a real lesson. So the way we fixed that is I came back to Melbourne, I sat down with the CFO, explained the issue, talked about the behavioural dynamics that were coming because of the policy, and asked how we could change it. And he and I went to the CEO and we lobbied for an open-ended bonus. He didn't like the idea, he didn't want to give his money away, but he realised that it was money that he wasn't making now. So by making it open-ended, he was making more money anyway. The second thing we did is we changed the structure of the bonus from 50%, from 100% their personal sales to 50% their personal sales and 50% based on the sales of the nation. Correct. Now, all of a sudden, there was incentive to help. The third step we did, and this was critical from a knowledge management perspective, is I sat with my BI team and we built not just a reporting tool to show how the bonuses worked, but it included a simulator. So you could say, if I win this customer and this customer and this customer, what's my bonus at the end of the year? Oh, did they love that little tool? They would sit there and you could see them. They'd be at a customer, they'd come home and they'd go straight to that tool and put in the numbers to see how much they were going to make at the end of the year. It was such a motivator. But the thing this taught me is that we've got to look at the individual motivations of knowledge behaviors. It's not enough to say that you have to do this or you've got to keep the company's best interest at mind. Have a think about what's in it for your people and run that back and look honestly, because sometimes it's you that's the problem, right? And don't think linearly. Try and think outside the box. Why might these people? Ask questions, sit with them, talk with them, understand their space. And I find that's where I've had my biggest wins as a knowledge manager, not building systems or writing manuals or managing gigabytes of content. It's those interactions with the business and actually solving real business problems.
Stuart, I love it because, the idea, the concept of the system isn't the issue, but the culture, the people are the issue. I won't say the problem, but the issue. We all know that. But you demonstrated that so wonderfully using your personal expertise of storytelling. So you now demonstrated how storytelling is a great tool in order to explain other people and to pass important messages. But I want to ask you a question because we don't have time to speak about storytelling too much, and maybe that would be an issue for another day. What challenges? Share one challenge that you encounter nowadays in Energy Safe Victoria while trying to change the culture, to build it, to see that, to turn it into a learning organization in its essence.
Yeah. So the biggest problem I have would be deterministic thinking. That simple cause and effect thing that all MBA students are taught, to put a price on everything and measure everything, and stick with quantitative values. And that, to my mind, is one of my biggest jobs, to try and balance that out, because people naturally want to go for the easy thing. There's a thing called the McNamara fallacy. Have you heard of it? So the McNamara fallacy is named after Robert McNamara, who was the Secretary of State during the Vietnam War. And he ran the Vietnam War based on numbers. So not on feedback from the troops or understanding the local cultures or the political diversity and what was happening there. It was simply on how many attacks have we done, how many deaths in the field, how many acres have been cleared with Agent Orange. It was all numbers. And it led to a terrible outcome for the US in the war. And so since then, the McNamara fallacy has been that when you make decisions just based on the numbers, not on what's actually happening, on the qualitative understanding and the underlying power structures and what's happening. And so for me, I'm only hearing from knowledge managers about managing this stuff. It's not quite true. I do run into the odd anthropologist who totally gets this, but it's those thick description, those deep stories that are going on underneath the surface that are actually causing a lot of the outcomes, not the KPIs that the executive's looking at. And so that deterministic thinking is a real barrier to knowledge, because knowledge really does address the real felt needs of the organization, how they make decisions, and not just how they get efficient. That's really a quantitative thing, but how do they do it effectively? So not do things right, but how do we do the right things? How do we know we're working on the most important alternative? And I think knowledge has a huge part to play in that, but often I find myself tapping people on the shoulder after they've made the mistake and said, now let's have a talk about how that worked, like as a lessons learned type thing or a review, when I'd love to be talking to them up front about what are your underlying assumptions? What's your logic model here? How does doing that achieve that? Can you explain that gap to me? And what would it look like if we were successful at the project, but it wasn't solving the problem? I love that question, because it gets them to think, oh, well, it could be this or it could be that. And now you're having real conversations. I find the leaders in the business that think that way or will allow me to guide them down that type of thinking, and I work with them. But gee, I'd love to have everyone capable of thinking that way.
But you have only 280 people and you have 10 years and you do it.
That's right. Exactly right. And the other thing is the executive of Energy Safe, including the CEO, they're all deeply experienced and really passionate people. And I love that. I've worked with people like that before, but this executive seems to have this lovely blend of executive thinking and hands-on thinking. And often I see either really executive, totally disconnected, or I see really hands-on with very little executive knowledge. And and they've got this wonderful balance. So it's a pleasure working with them.
That sounds like you are lucky in being in Energy Safe Victoria, but I am sure that Energy Safe Victoria is very lucky having you with them. So,
I
wow.
hope so. That's all they pay me for. So
towards the ending, share with us some of your vision, one of your vision stories, of one of your vision thoughts. Where are we going? Where are you going?
So where I'm going is really clear for me. So my goal right now is to make sure that AI generates experts, not replaces them. Right? And I think it's critically important because we've automatically got this focus on efficiency in every organization I've worked on. It's up to us knowledge managers to, number one, push back on that and focus a bit more on effectiveness. But not just that, but to understand things like vector databases, knowledge graphs, semantic layer. If you're a knowledge manager right now and you don't know what those words I just said meant, you need to learn fast, because they are the tools that we embed knowledge and understanding and connection and relationship into these AI systems that right now are being fed gigabytes of raw data with no way to sense make it, no way to wayfind it. It just looks for syntactic connections. And that leads to hallucinations. It leads to it leads very, very quickly to the obvious answer and almost always overlooks the smart answer. And so I've been experimenting with my own AI systems and learning more about what's it really good at, what's it not, what do we need to major on. And for me, what that means is majoring on AI governance. And the only place I'm hearing about this right now is from terrified government lawyers and from knowledge managers. They're the two people I'm constantly hearing about AI governance. And there's a very different story from both of those. We need to be the positive story, that governance is good and if done right, leads to fantastic outcomes, right? Right now, governance is all about narrowly averting disaster. And a lot of the guidance coming out of government organisations right now for other government organisations is about guardrails, it's about security and privacy and limiting, but they're not talking about how then do you navigate to achieve positive outcomes for the state or the nation. And knowledge managers have got that in spades. We've been doing that for decades, right? That's the space we inhabit. But often the support hasn't been there for joining those dots, so to speak. And all of a sudden, AI has the same problem that we've had with people for years, that it needs good data, garbage in, garbage out. Only now, because it's attached to AI, every C-suite person on the planet wants to solve that problem. And we've got decades of experience doing it. So when it comes to human plus AI, I think knowledge managers are in the box seat to guide the world on setting their systems up so they're much more likely to do good than harm.
Wow. Let's hope that every CIO and every CEO hears you, listens, and maybe open their heart, their budget, and the opportunity for KMers, maybe not being in the pilot seat, but joining in and giving this input and help leading it to a better place. Thank you.
No worries at all.